this day, Monday, October 5th. It's our regular meeting. Good morning, colleagues. I am joined by several of our colleagues, and we do have quorum. Having said that, I would like to take items 1, 2, and 5 on consent without objection. Items 1, 2, and 5. Objection here? No objection? So moved. 1, 2, and 5 are on consent, which brings us to item 3.
Item number 3, Department of Recreation and Parks report relative to the authorization to accept and receive the Juvenile Justice Crime Prevention Act grant funding from the LA Probation Department to provide youth services through the Clean and Safe Spaces Parks Youth Employment Internship Program.
Welcome. Please identify yourself and let us know your thoughts. Thank you.
Good morning, Commissioners and guests of the Arts, Parks, and Rivers Committee. I'm Sofia Pina-Cortez, and I'm the Superintendent for the Department of Recreation and Parks. And I'm here to report on item number 3. Today, we're happy to report that once again, the Department of Recreation and Parks has been awarded a grant from the Juvenile Justice Crime Prevention Act. Over the past 14 years, the Department of Recreation and Parks has received over $7 million from the JJCPA. This 15 years grant award is in the approximate amount of $504,000 $504,430. And under the umbrella of the Class Parks program, these funds will continue to help us to operate the Youth Employment Internship Program, commonly known as YEIP. These sites were selected based on demographics of low-income and high-crime areas in Los Angeles. It is estimated that approximately 6,500 teens will be served in these programs during the 2015-16 fiscal year. The YEIP program is committed to proactive criminal deterrence by providing healthy alternatives to juvenile crime via jobs and life skill training to at-risk youth in the city, and thereby decreasing the number of youth participating in criminal or gang-related activities. Annually, the YEIP program provides 300 youth in grades 8 to 12 with a stipend of $250 for participating in the program, provided they attend 6 of the 8 classes, attend 2 of 1 field trips, and complete their volunteer program. Valuable programmatic skills, which include but are not limited to money management, professional etiquette, resume composition, first aid, and job-seeking skills are taught for facilitating a youth's transition into life after high school. The life skill instructions are complemented by a distinct internship training course. First, we have the counselor leadership training. Secondly, we have a sports management and leadership training. And finally, there's a criminal scene investigation, CSI training, which, by the way, is very popular. Enrollment for the internship program is on a first-come, first-served basis and is generally conducted from September through June on designated Saturdays, followed by volunteer and community service projects. These courses are taught by our recreation staff, and awards and incentives are given to the graduates of the program completing volunteer community projects as required by the YEIP program. The other 2 JJCPA programs that the department managements are the after-school teen club program and the Friday night extreme teens. The after-school program their focus is to build self-esteem, provide opportunities for volunteerism, enhance learning through tutoring, homework assignment, life skill activities, good citizenship and anger management, as well as sports and a host of field trips. These programs are offered Monday through Friday at all Class Park sites for youth ages 11 to 17. The Friday Night Extreme Teens is an extension of the after-school program. All Class Park sites will implement extended program hours every Friday from 4 to 9 for youth ages 11 to 17. Teens will have an opportunity to engage in sports activities and work with other teens through a variety of clubs, job readiness, college-bound, drama, dance, cooking, and nutrition.
Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Cortez. Please. No, are you Jaran?
I'm Jaran Bogle, Recreation and Parks.
And would you like to add anything at all?
I'm just here for assistance.
Okay. Very good. Thank you. Thank you so much. And I think I asked this last time this grant was up for renewal, and that is, how do you select the parks involved? Do you base it on?
So the program itself is under the umbrella of the Class Park program. Originally in 2000, there were 47 Class Parks programs, but through the years, through the reduction of dollars and stuff, we've had to reduce to the 33 sites. So that's based on low income and crime rate.
Okay, from the census tracts based on low income and crime rate.
Correct.
And so you focus specifically in the areas of greater need.
One of the nice things, though, about the YEIP program is it doesn't matter what community a child lives in. They don't necessarily have to participate in the Class Park program and or be part of a low-income community. They can come. It's on a first-come, first-served basis. We do advertise at all of our recreation centers. So if a child is interested in any one of the programs and they participate and they fulfill the minimum obligation requirements by the YEIP, then that's a nice feature to the program. So,
No matter where the family.
No matter where they live in Los Angeles.
And did I hear this correctly? Did I hear the term Friday Night Extreme Team? Did I hear that correctly?
That's correct.
Could you expand on that a little bit?
Okay, so the Friday Night Extreme, what we try to do is we focus on the Class Parks team program. They operate through the weekdays. They have clubs and stuff. And so we want to try to make sure that the kids have activities on Friday nights. I think the Mayor's Grid program is also piggybacking on this concept. So we're working together with the Summer Night Lights program that's been expanded to Friday nights. So we complement each other to keep kids off the streets from 4 to 9 p.m. on Fridays.
Terrific. And you answered my last question already by in referencing the Grid team and the Summer Night Lights program. Mm-hmm. So, terrific.
It's a nice partner.
Yes, thank you so much. Colleagues, questions? Mr. Price.
Thank you for the presentation and for the job and the commitment. It is an exciting program. 14 years, that says something. How many youth are we actually serving?
6,500.
That's over the course of a year? Or
Correct.
The course of, mm-hmm. And they come primarily from the areas where the sites are located, or is it unusual to have
primarily from
kids come from other areas?
Yeah, primarily from the sites that are selected, the 33. I don't know, do you guys have a copy of the sites?
I do, yes.
Okay, so in some of the council districts, of course, there are more sites selected, and in a few of them they don't have any. But again, kids are welcome to participate, bring their friends. There's no requirement for kids to participate. But the majority of the kids will come from the Class Park sites.
No, I'm pleased that there are 5 sites in the 9th, and we certainly appreciate that collaboration. Is there what happens after the program? After they've gone through this program, they've graduated. Is there any connection?
Well, it was really interesting because this program's been running now for 15 years in the city, and many of these children would not have had the opportunity to be exposed to a college visitation. We take them to colleges and really encourage them during their elementary and high school years to apply to go to college, and we invite them to the field trips. I was just telling Jaren this morning that I had an opportunity to meet one of the participants in the program, and she was in the CSI program. She loved it so much that she's now getting a criminal justice degree at Cal State LA, and she's also working for us part-time. So a lot of the children have opportunities to work in the summer day camp programs or officiating through our sports programs. So we're actually mentoring them from a very young age through high school. After high school, we really don't keep track of them, but a lot of them do come back and say how impactful the program was to them during the time they were in elementary and high school.
Thank you.
To your knowledge, tagging along with that, are any former, any youth that went through this program early on, have they become rec center full-time employees?
Absolutely.
Or rec center directors?
Absolutely, I'm one of them. But the one I went through was a little different, but very, very similar to this. Yeah, we do have staff that, again, a lot of them have their college degrees that are part-timers waiting to get a full-time job. And so we're happy about that graduation as well.
Who have gone through this program when they were very young, and
Yes.
then they come back.
Well, this program has only been in for 15
Well,
years,
that's what,
so yeah.
so
Yeah,
maybe
so-
15 years ago, if you went through this
have
program,
a
you're
few,
in your
uh-huh.
30s.
Yeah, we do.
And, okay, that would be very interesting to see.
I don't have the exact statistic, but I do know that we have several kids that did go through our programs that are now working either part-time and a few maybe full-time.
It would be interesting, maybe between now and the next time you report on this, just to get a number. I think that would be very beneficial.
We'll do that.
Terrific. Thank you, Mr. Blumenfield.
Sort of adding to that, and by the way, I think it's a wonderful program, and thank you for the good work that you do on this and for providing this service to the community. Building up on that, what kind of metrics are there? I think it would be useful to see metrics on something like this if we're going to ever be able to duplicate it or get more funding, get the county more interested in that kind of thing. It would be helpful to have metrics. Do you track the students at all from who've been through the program and compare them to the future, or is there any data that we have that links the decrease in crime to the program, or any sort of quantifiable statistics that we have with the program?
Currently, we don't have that, but I know that the department is looking into a new system that's going to help us to track all of our registered patrons based on their age, their sex, and we'll be able to get some of those statistics. And Class Parks in particular is one of the programs that has been tasked to do that. So we're going to start to benchmark again.
And that system is going into place in July, this upcoming July.
July of 2016?
2016. Mm-hmm.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, to me, it's almost a waste to have such a great program and not be able to quantify it.
Mm-hmm.
Makes it susceptible to cuts in the future and makes it hard to duplicate and get additional funds for. So I'm very glad that something's happening on that front. Disappointed that nothing's happened on that front for 15 years. That seems crazy to me that there's not been any statistics kept, because I think we have a great story to tell.
I believe in the inception of the program because there was quite a bit of funding, and I recall in the year 2000, the first couple grants we were awarded quite a bit of money, but with the reduction of the grant dollars, it became difficult to actually have staffing to track all of that. So it fell off the radar. But again, in 2016, we're going to start again.
But imagine if we had siphoned off a little bit to do some tracking over the last 15 years, and then we had an incredible case to make now. It'd be a lot easier to get a lot more funding from not just the county, but from all over. So I'm glad that's moving. I put in the plug for, I'm always a big fan of getting more metrics, and especially for good programs like this, so put in that plug. Last question, do the park locations ever change, or how does that, once they're decided, what's the process?
Okay, so the original 47 were selected again based on, and no, they haven't. They haven't, because unfortunately, those particular facilities continue to have the low-income, high-crime rate areas. So we've targeted those.
So it's not that they don't change, it's that you do some sort of statistical analysis each year and they always come up to be those? So there is a process, or is it
As far as the class parks sites in general. Now, for this particular program, for the Youth Employment Internship Program, these classes rotate all throughout the city, all throughout all of the council districts and the different regions within our department. So that's constantly rotating so that kids from all different areas have the opportunity to participate.
Thanks, Bob. You bring up great points, because I always go kind of on anecdotal. And I know that in my own community in Glassell Park, I'm sure that's one of the sites, right? Glassell Park Rec Center. I know that the crime reduced in some of the census tracts in the last 10 years has been 90% crime reduction for Part 1 crimes. And I think it's a combination of many things, but again, that's only, that statistic it might be a fact, but my feeling about the difference these types of programs make are strictly anecdotal. So I think going after the metrics is going to be very, very helpful. Plus, it doesn't mean, another anecdote I have is that it takes about a full generation to really transform a neighborhood and get rid of some of the societal problems that cause destruction in our communities. So it's going to probably take longer than 15 years to actually have a complete transformation within a neighborhood. But again, that's just my understanding from reading several, trade organization magazines and articles on the issue. So hard statistics, I think, would be very, very helpful. That's a great idea. Thank you. Mr. Rue.
Quick question. So you're saying the YEIP program goes around the city?
Correct.
It's not based out of the parks? I mean, are these 33 sites?
It is, but the program itself rotates. The program itself is a 8-week consecutive program. So once that 8 weeks is up, then the next track will move to a different site somewhere else.
But at one of these 33 sites?
Correct.
Oh, okay. So besides low income and high crime rates, does these parks does it require that they have to have a facility in the park with staff? Is that one of the prerequisites, or?
All of our sites do, because we have existing staffing at those particular facilities, so then the infrastructure will help to complement the programs that we do for the teens.
So if it's a smaller park without that infrastructure, they can't?
It's really difficult to operate, because then we have to have additional staff to go out there, and it's a challenge, yeah.
I know you guys have cut in funding, but if another park wanted to participate, how would they? Is it just through your regression analysis, or is it?
They could come to a hub center or a host center. Any child could come to any one of the host centers.
I mean, if we wanted to try to expand from 33 parks to 34.
You want to help us find some money? We'll be happy to do that.
So without additional
Yeah, we need additional funding, yeah.
But could any park apply? Staff from a particular park apply to?
The unique thing about these particular class park programs is that part of the budget is funded for one full-time class park coordinator. So we would have to have, a whole new budget in the budget process to actually apply. We don't have actual funding for the program.
Okay. So, what I'm trying to get at is, if there's another park, if they wanted to somehow, if we wanted to expand this program to another park, what would? There is no possible way right now?
I know that the general manager is putting together a budget package of interest to just say how much it would cost to add another facility. So they would have a whole breakdown on the staffing costs and material supplies. It comes with a van for transporting the children, full and part-time staff for supervision. And so there's a lot of funding requirement for just one site.
Thank you, Mr. Rue. Mr. Koretz.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So just on the metrics that we were talking about, would it not have become easier to do that now that software and hardware has so dramatically improved over the years in terms of tracking people after they've graduated from the program and graduated from high school?
That would be one of the matrix that we could add to the program, to the software, if they would want to give information after they've left. But to the date, we haven't. But we're going to add that to the matrix.
Right. What I'm asking is would that have been more difficult 15 years ago because of where software and hardware and computer systems were, IT-wise?
Yes.
Seems like we're making a lot of those changes now citywide anyway, so it seems like this isn't such bad timing to start.
That's correct. One of the nice features of these class park programs is that we do have the Beat Top labs and the computer labs at the facilities as well to help the kids with their homework, and a lot of kids don't have access to computers, so they're able to come here to these facilities and do their homework on computers themselves.
And the students that are in the program, do they get to pick which jobs they're assigned, or are they assigned by the program itself?
They volunteer for which one of the internship programs they want to participate in, and then we give them volunteer service to meet that compliance for the program. So it could be volunteering at a community event, at Latino Heritage, at Echo Park, at Wilmington. We just had that one. They sometimes volunteer for the summer day camp program as interns as well to get experience working with the kids.
Anyone ever looked at trying to use the teen court program as part of this? Because I know they're always trying to recruit sort of juries of their peers to participate in that.
Not that I'm familiar with, but I'm going to... Teen Court?
Teen court, yeah. My office is familiar with it, so if it helps, we can connect you with them. It might be something interesting for
Thank you.
kids in this program to participate in.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Koretz. So I have a couple of recommendations. I'm going to recommend that we approve the Board and Recreation Parks report. There are no comment cards on this item, but my recommendations are that we have information distributed to all of our field offices on the JJCPA program at the beginning of the next fiscal year, so that we can participate in helping spread the word about this incredible program for some of the families that we work with who may otherwise, never really know about it. So I would love for that to happen. And at some point in the next 3 months, if we could have a presentation on the Class Parks program, just a presentation about all that the Class Parks program is, what you do, so that we can all have a refresher course and be reminded of all the great things you're doing. Plus, again, we can then participate in helping spread the word so we can empower more of our families that we serve.
We appreciate that.
Terrific. Thank you. So without objections, we will approve the Board of Recreation and Parks report and move forward. So moved. Which brings us to, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thanks for all your work. Which brings us to item 4.
Item number 4, CAO report relative to the agreement between the city and the Historic Italian Hall Foundation for the Italian American Museum at El Pueblo Historic Monument.
Terrific. And we have Mr. Chris Espinosa and Janelle Irving. Welcome, and we look forward to your presentation.
Thank you.
Good morning, Janelle Irving with the Office of the CAO. Before you today is a memorandum of agreement between the city and the Historic Italian Hall Foundation that establishes the roles, responsibilities, and financial relationship between the two relative to the operations and maintenance of the Italian American Museum of Los Angeles, located in the El Pueblo de Los Angeles Historic Monument. Under the terms of the proposed agreement, the department has overall management authority over the museum, and the foundation will raise funds and collaborate jointly with the department in the renovation, operation, and expansion of the museum and its artifacts. The Historic Italian Hall Foundation is a nonprofit corporation who's a longtime partner, and they've raised over $2 million to date for the improvements and renovation to the museum and the Italian Hall building. In recognition of this, the initial term of the agreement is 10 years, and there's an option for 3 10-year renewal options that are available, provided that they raise and expend a minimum of $500,000 in the initial 10-year period, and an additional $500,000 during each renewal option period. The proposed agreement is in compliance with the city's financial policies, and that a direct public benefit will be obtained through the foundation's in-kind services and fundraising efforts, which will provide for improvements, displays, and artifacts for the museum. As such, our recommendation is that council approve and authorize the general manager of El Pueblo to execute the proposed agreement with the Historic Italian Hall Foundation. And at this time, Chris Espinosa, the general manager of El Pueblo, is here to provide more information and answer any questions.
Thank you.
Good morning, council members. Chris Espinosa, general manager of El Pueblo Historical Monument. This is a long time coming. Started working on this when I started as a general manager about 3 years ago. It's a very solid agreement. It reflects the same type of agreement that the Friends of the Chinese American Museum has. And essentially, it functions much like the Greater Los Angeles Zoo Association. The organization is specifically created to support the city, support El Pueblo Historical Monument and programming and putting on exhibits. And so we're really excited. October 10th, we have the Taste of Italy event at El Pueblo, and it's a very elegant, beautiful fiesta that I call it. We have a lot of fiestas at the park. I've been working very closely with them. They're in our office in the B Sky Luce building, and we work very closely, and I'm just really excited to be able to bring this forward after many, many years. It's long overdue. Thank you.
Terrific, thank you. So a few questions. I am really appreciative of all the work that has gone into restoring this incredible facility when it has sat underutilized and at risk of, becoming an unusable structure in its past. So it's a very exciting time. And I'm also supportive of entering into these types of agreements, whether it's a public-private partnership. And we worked, as you're very aware, a good part of last year, and actually late 2013 and most of 2014, to really sort of hammer out and hash out some of the issues with GLAZA and the LA Zoo. And they're a wonderful nonprofit that has, over the years, added great benefit. But we had some, issues to hash through, which I think will not be necessary in this instance once we focus on the details, so that misunderstandings don't add up over the years with these types of contracts. So some questions I have is, what is your way of verifying the fundraising, the $500,000 a year? How do you determine that?
Yeah, so I have a number of documents, including their tax returns, that I keep on file to be able to verify the amount of fundraising that they've done. Also, because they're housed in the B Sky Luce building, I'm directly knowledgeable about the amount of staff that they hire on an annual basis. And we partner on events, and I see the marketing that goes forward. So I'm directly involved in all those matters. It also includes construction and the money fundraised for construction. So right now they're doing the final renovations of the building and including the exhibitry. So I even attend the building and safety meetings so that we can coordinate all this activity. So yes, I have all that information in my files.
Terrific. Do you carry a clipboard around checking things off the box?
I even brought it. I mean, it's like, it's all right here, just,
You had mentioned that it's consistent with other agreements. Can you elaborate on that? Is it generally consistent, or are we creating a whole new template because these partnerships are increasing in the city of LA because of the foundation money that seems to be more easily identifiable than if we did it ourselves?
We've been very fortunate to have a city attorney that's been with El Pueblo Historical Monument for over 10 years. This gentleman has crafted the agreements. He has over 30 years of experience at the city attorney's office, and is also counsel to the zoo. The Los Angeles Zoo Department. So when we first crafted the Friends of the Chinese American Museum, it was a very important agreement establishing the parameters of how we would coexist at the site and how to make sure that ultimately the city, it's a city-operated property, it's a city-owned facility, all the artifacts are the city's, but that this is a Friends of organization to supplement and to enhance what we can do. So this agreement follows very closely in line with the Friends of the Chinese American Museum, which was adopted by this council, and so I think it's a very good document. If another organization were to develop a nonprofit specifically to enhance El Pueblo and one of its museums, they would follow in line of this agreement as well. So there's a well-established precedent.
Okay. And Section 8.6 relates to the dissolution, which I'm sure isn't going to happen because I think it's going to be wildly successful.
Yes.
But we have to think about those, what-ifs. What's put in place in terms of the artifacts and the collection, as you mentioned, is owned by the city?
Yes. So actually, much of the collection is in a warehouse in a city-owned facility, a city-leased facility, and the city's going to be around no matter what. The nonprofit we hope will continue to function in a very robust manner, very transparent and fair manner, and do great work with the city. If the organization were ever to fail and dissolve, the city would step in. We would have all the artifacts under our possession, because that's a part of this agreement means that all these artifacts, all the intellectual property of the name and everything is really city's property. The city will, once the museum is open, the city is going to actually fund the part-time museum guides that will open up the facility Tuesday through Sunday, 10 to 3. So if the organization goes away, the museum still operates. And then at that point, we would work with either another organization or a reconstructed organization from that one to come back in and fulfill that role. So because the very connectedness of the Italian-American community in Los Angeles, we fully expect that there will always be great community input. So I'm confident that we'll do well for many years to come.
And you bring up a good point, and you said the artifacts are in storage and have been in storage. So how long have these artifacts not been seen by the public?
Well, for many, many decades. Many of these collected artifacts also haven't had a space to be able to shine. We do have a very large collection of artifacts that we are working on cataloging and putting it together. And every now and then we're able to bring out some of these items to show in our spaces. But like many museums, sometimes you have maybe a garage full of great things that only intermittently are you able to put on display. And so El Pueblo's in that same position. The good thing about the Historic Italian Hall Foundation is that they'll have resources, additional resources, to be able to put on rotating exhibits and displays. And so that's specifically why we're getting together with them, because, you know, as city staff has shrunk, we need help from nonprofits to be able to put really great exhibits together, really great marketing, and the team you have here is just top notch. So we're really lucky to have their dedication.
And lastly, before I open up to my colleagues, what type of overhead is the city responsible for in terms of custodial, maintenance, et cetera, utilities?
Yes.
What's that arrangement?
Yes, so we are responsible for custodial. We're responsible for the museum guides who open it up and close it. We're responsible for the electricity costs and the air conditioning, and also the general maintenance of the facility as well. We're responsible for that. The partnership that we have with the Italian American Museum is right now they're investing, we believe it's about $1 million of exhibitry, final improvements to the building so that there's a real clear entryway, and other fire, life safety and electrical improvements. So there's always an ongoing kind of capital construction side of making improvements to the space, and we partner with them to make those enhancements, but they're paying for all that. Okay. But general day-to-day operations, the city will cover it because it's a city facility. It's one of our buildings within the historic monument.
And that includes all information technology, et cetera?
They're purchasing exhibitry that will have technology. They are responsible for maintaining those exhibits.
And how about parking?
Parking, we provide parking to our nonprofit partners, free parking for staff members who work on a day-to-day basis. We try to limit them to one of our farther out parking lots. But in the near future, because of the amount of activity at the site, and because we're doing some parking automation work maybe in the near future, parking is going to get more and more challenging. And so I'm working with the personnel department right now to develop proper guidelines to probably reduce the amount of free parking that we're able to provide at El Pueblo.
I think one upcoming complication is the development of the surface parking lot directly across the street. I don't have the details of that, but I think that will cause some impacts during the construction phase. But as I said, I think we're probably a number of years off from that, but maybe not so far. but Marianna and I have discussed that before, so.
Yeah.
Terrific. Okay, thank you so much, colleagues. Mr. Blumenfield.
Well, I'm excited about this Italian-American museum, and a landmark like El Pueblo is fantastic, so I'm 100% on board. I think it's great.
Thank you.
I'm a little confused on some of the financial arrangements. I just wanted to understand it better, because when we have a nonprofit come to a city facility, we have a policy where we offset by the rental agreement, where they have to basically provide enough services to offset the rental agreement, which is what we're doing here, according to the way you described it. But at the same time, this isn't the typical situation where a nonprofit is using our space. They're enhancing our museum. So I'm not sure why we're using the same formula. And it's not really the same formula, because we're unlike in other scenarios where we have nonprofits come in for $1 a year or something, but we show that they can offset those services. We're paying a lot more in terms of custodial and museum people and everything else.
Yes.
So it doesn't seem like the right model, to be having to have them justify that they're meeting in-kind fair market value of the office space. It seems like we're using that model, but it's a square peg in a round hole.
Well, I'm glad you asked it, because I know it's a citywide issue when it comes to surplus properties and excess properties with nonprofits. In our case, because we're a park, and because the city is directly in control of that park and all the facilities within them, we have a general plan. That general plan dictates how these buildings are to be used and in what manner. Even more than that, this nonprofit was specifically created to enhance El Pueblo. So it's not just and it has to be.
I get that, and that's kind of why I'm saying it doesn't seem like almost the fair model to use.
Well, so on an annual basis, they have maybe 2 full-time staff, maybe 5 part-time staff. So you look at all those salary costs. When they hold events and they bring in resources for those events, we count all that. Improvements. When they do marketing, we count that. When they do exhibits and change out exhibits, that's the kind of programming and annual funding that we're counting to make sure that they're fulfilling their role in serving the public. Because this is a free museum, you have thousands and thousands of people entering into that building. It is in their best interest, and of course ours as well, to enhance it, make it as safe and enjoyable as possible, and to have as many programming as possible. So this is the way in which I'm able to ensure that this nonprofit is serving the public. Am I answering your?
I mean, I understand why we're doing it. I still don't quite understand the model compared to other nonprofits. I mean, in the sense that the other nonprofits that are just coming in, I understand why they have to meet the rental space. They have to show that they're doing this amount for the rental space, but because they're not necessarily a museum that's open to the public, they're providing a public good. This is a little different. I'm not opposed to it. I just don't quite. It seems like there should be a different model that's used here, as opposed to the standard. You have to show that you meet the rental agreement. You're making up for just the amount of rental.
You know, there's a lot of. I'll be very honest. There's a lot of nonprofits out there that would love to be able to function in El Pueblo. You know, the property is right in the heart of the city, across from Union Station, and I get proposals all the time for nonprofits to come in and use city property.
Sure.
But because we're a historic monument, because we have a general plan, and because our buildings should be used in a manner that's specific to the history of LA, and this nonprofit is specifically created to only do that. They're not just providing some other type of service. So that's, yeah.
Reasons for them to be there,
Yeah.
Absolutely on board with that.
Yeah, there might be also competing Italian organizations that may wish to also, and so this is also identifying this group as working with the city for a long time, and we recognizing their financial and programming contributions to partner with them.
Janelle, did you want to add something?
Yeah, I was just going to piggyback on what you're saying, and just the model really is set up in that the general manager is reviewing the annual operating budget and the fundraising goals, and really is focused on the strategic and business plans. In fact, they will form a oversight, a joint executive committee that's overseeing many of the strategic plans and policies, and that's really the structure that's set up in this agreement. A small component is that we are offering them small office space, and that's a component that I understand what you're saying, Council Member, in that for that office space, because it is a valuable asset to El Pueblo, we're just also incorporating that they're doing in-kind services
So that's
equivalent to that.
It's kind of a side.
It is a side note that we are fully meeting that financial policy as well, but really the structure is set up in that they're focused on the fundraising and raising funds, as well as collaborating on design and creating exhibits, and that's the focus that still falls under the general manager's purview.
Great, makes sense. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Price.
Thank you. An exciting project. I'm just curious, what kinds of artifacts? Cups, saucers, bowls, and from when to when? What kind of period are we talking about?
Well, we have Marianna. You wanna speak?
Yes, come on up, Marianna.
Come on up. It's in the warehouse, storehouse.
Hi there, Marianna Gatto, Director of the Italian American Museum of Los Angeles. Our artifacts range from the late 1700s to the present, and we're a social history museum, so we have a lot of photographs, clothing, textiles, a little bit of everything. Most of the items kind of represent Italian life, Italian American life in the region. So it's incredibly diverse, what we have in our collection. Business records, a little bit of everything, but we'd love for you to come down and take a look and better acquaint yourself with it.
You want to add to that?
Well, one of the documents that we have is from a gentleman in the early 1900s who he's Italian. He had to register as a foreign.
As an enemy alien.
As an enemy alien because, the United States was at war with Italy. And so we have these documents that show that, and some people forget, they think the Japanese Americans were, largely the ones that had to respond to these kind of issues, but the Italians also had the same kind of social issue going on at that time. So we have those kind of documents. It's very beautiful to see.
Thank you.
We may not, the David may not be on loan anytime soon.
Well,
Uffizi.
we're an Italian-American museum, but that being said, we work very closely with the Italian government, and there's a lot of interest in bringing exhibitions over from Italy. So you'll definitely see that in our temporary exhibition gallery, for instance. There'll definitely, funding, God willing, be exhibitions that are loaned from Italy itself. Maybe not David, but
Yeah. Mr. Kretz.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. One thing I'm not entirely clear on is the Historic Italian Hall Foundation and the museum.
Yes.
What exactly does what, and where does one start, and where does one finish? Because I really was only aware of the museum. I wasn't that aware of the foundation. So,
well, originally
I know the museum is raising a lot of money, and the other one is raising money. So what's what?
Well, I'll speak to the city has a long history with the Historic Italian Hall Foundation. That's the entity with the 501c3, and to modernize the name, our friends are simply known as IMLA, Italian American Museum of Los Angeles, and so it's a much more direct way to talk about what the space is really going to be. And so the agreement is between the Historic Italian Hall Foundation, but in their functioning manner, they're just known as IMLA, or Italian American Museum of Los Angeles.
So essentially, it's not two organizations. It's essentially the same.
It's just a cleaner way to say what we're doing.
And obviously, I'm very excited that this is up and running, and I've taken a tour of the property a while back, so I assume it's made even more improvements. And I thank Ms. Gatto for all her great work and staff, and it's all very exciting. I do have a question. I don't know if it's in the same vein that Mr. Blumenfield was looking at. The question is the $500,000 worth of improvements every 10 years. Is that a stress on the organization? Is that too much? Should we be subsidizing more? Is it a fair amount? I just want to make sure it's a sustainable amount.
Yeah, I think it's a very fair number. If we don't raise at least that every 10 years, I don't think we have any business being in business. So, in order to be even a nominally sophisticated organization, I think we need, our annual operating budget is currently at about $225,000, and we anticipate operating at about $350,000 in the next year or so. So we definitely, we've got to raise that much in order to.
And that all applies to the $500,000.
Correct.
Yes. And they've done some significant fundraising recently. I'm sure she'll be able to tell you. She filled out a speaker card, so she'll be able to tell you about it.
And one other question. So what are our plans to promote the museum once everything is up and running? Are we planning streetlight banners or other marketing opportunities?
Currently a lot of our promotional efforts are dedicated to Taste of Italy, which is next weekend. That's our largest annual event. But we have one of our staff members is part of her duties are public relations, and we've been written up in everything from the Japan Times to the LA Times. I kind of describe our efforts as somewhat guerrilla in our public relations efforts. But the city is very excited about this project as a whole, the citizenry, and it shows just in the kind of social media following that we have. So, and I think when our doors open, that will only increase.
Very good. Thank you. And Mr. Root.
I join my colleagues. I mean, it's very exciting whenever we celebrate diversity in the city, and it's always good to remember our roots. Kind of a side question. I was wondering, how large is El Pueblo, and who else or what else is in it?
It's 44 acres in total. We actually partner with a whole number of nonprofit organizations. There's Las Angelitas del Pueblo, and that's a nonprofit that's been around since the 1960s, and they give free tours of the historic monument. There's Friends of the Chinese American Museum that enhance and provide programming at the Chinese American Museum, and we have a big exhibit opening actually today with the Tunghua group of Hong Kong. We work very closely with the United Methodist Church. The church is actually city property, and they have a nonprofit arm called the Museum of Social Justice, and they promote their events, and they're doing a really nice exhibit this October on the civil rights movement in Los Angeles. So that's going to be a really nice event. There's the Overa Street Merchants Association Foundation. In addition to their business activity, the Overa Street Merchants also have a nonprofit foundation, and we partner with them continuously to promote cultural events on the site. Our Lady Queen of Angels Church across the street. It's, of course, part of the Catholic Archdiocese, but we work very closely with the Catholic Church. They're one of our very important partners in the park, and we partner with their nonprofit organization called Jóvenes, and we do a lot of functions through the church. There's even more. The Firehouse Museum has a nonprofit. We have the Mexican Cultural Institute.
So all these organizations have a similar type arrangement?
Most of them do. Only the key ones using our facilities have these long-term arrangements, and it takes years to, develop a nonprofit that's able to do that. Some of the organizations are not fully under one of these agreements yet, and it takes time. This one took many years. So slowly but surely, we've been putting them under longer-term agreements where it made sense. This particular one is part of our general plan, so this is very important to the overall development of El Pueblo as a historic monument.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Terrific. Thank you so much. And Marianna, if you could stay, and we're going to invite someone else from the Italian American Museum, Mr. Paul Pagnoni. for your comments.
Good
Whoever
morning,
would
council
like to
members.
speak.
I'm going to let Marianne start.
Terrific.
So again, for the record, Marianna Gatto, Executive Director of the Italian American Museum. We're known by the clever acronym IMLA, which kind of expresses our approach to history and the communication of history, making it relevant to the tremendously diverse audiences that visit the facility. Paul Pagnoni is our tireless volunteer president. And of course, for those of you who can't visualize the building itself, we're located in the historic Italian Hall, which was constructed in 1908. It is the oldest remaining building from the city's Little Italy. At one time, El Pueblo, Lincoln Heights, Chinatown were kind of the heart of the city's Italian enclave. So let's talk finances. Between April 20th of this year and today, we've raised approximately $695,000. That is not reflected in the report that you received, which was finalized in May, I believe. But there's been a tremendous amount of excitement related to the finalization of this agreement, and I think that's in part responsible for the uptake in our fundraising. We also have an additional $400,000 in pledges to the museum, but 695, those are kind of our concrete numbers. In addition to that, we've forged some very valuable partnerships, including with Sony as a corporate partner, as well as with the Vons Foundation, which has allowed us to expand our educational programming. We launched recently a project called HEAT, which stands for Healthy Eating Ambassadors in Training, and it targets the childhood obesity epidemic in Southern California. So while we are certainly a museum, our vision kind of transcends that to really satisfy some needs in the community that might not be typical to what a museum does. We've also secured in-kind gifts that have allowed us to kind of expand the restoration work that wasn't the original part of our plan. This represents an additional $150,000 investment in the building that will allow us to do additional restoration work to the facade. And the Italian Hall is really the portal to the city's birthplace, and we want it to look as beautiful as possible. But back to the museum itself, construction began about 2 weeks ago, and in the coming months we'll complete the remaining TI work, as well as the move-in of our exhibitions, the construction of our new entry. And if everything goes as planned, our doors will be open the first quarter of this year, so probably February, March. But again, just going back to kind of who we are, this museum isn't necessarily for or about Italian Americans. Really what we've constructed is a dynamic institution where, the visitors, the generations of visitors will learn a lot about Southern California as a whole and the role that Italians played in it. But we anticipate maybe 15% of our visitors being of Italian ancestry. So the way we approach history is to engage everybody else. And none of this could be achieved without your support and the support of General Manager Chris Espinosa, who's just been really a tireless supporter of the project. And we're really grateful to be working with you to make our city's birthplace shine. Thank you.
Thank you.
Paul Pagnoni, President of the Italian American Museum, Historic Italian Hall Foundation. I'm a very proud native Angelino. I was born in Chinatown, which of course was historically, previously Little Italy. So I'm very interested and dedicated to the history of Los Angeles, the real history of it, particularly Northeast Los Angeles. And I think the story of Italian Americans in Los Angeles is actually the story of Los Angeles. You had a very diverse group of people and cultures that came and were settled at this place we now call Overa Street, although it wasn't always called that. There was a Jewish population, Chinese, Japanese, Black, Anglo, all in this small little western frontier town. And I think because it was a small town, there certainly were prejudices, but I think they were less in Los Angeles. And I think that's one of the reasons you no longer have an Italian American community, because they were able to assimilate easier than perhaps in Boston or New York. And I think Our museum is a small part of telling this greater Los Angeles story. And I think some of you intimated that maybe the financial fundraising burdens on us might be too high, but I can assure you they're not. And I think it's important that the nonprofits that operate in partnership with the city are held to a standard, and we fully expect to exceed that standard. So if I could just maybe plant a little seed, one of the things I would love to see in the future is more city focus on the El Pueblo side as a whole, as opposed to, I know I'm up here for the museum, but it is the birthplace of our city. And Chris Espinosa and his staff, and Dove LaSalle, the city attorney who helped us craft this agreement, who's not here today, I want to thank them. They've been unique public servants, that they really care. And so if in the future the city saw fit to maybe spend a little more time, effort, money on improving this really unique historic resource, and possibly even someday having a museum of Los Angeles that ties all these groups together, because the Japanese American story, the Chinese American story, the Mexican American story, the Jewish American story, they're not so dissimilar. They all faced difficult challenges, and yet here we are, we're all Angelenos, and I'm just really glad I can be a part of it. So I want to thank you all, and I hope you support our MOA, and I want to thank Marianna and Gatto particularly for years of tireless work, and once again the El Pueblo staff. They're really not only helping us, but they've made a tremendous difference at El Pueblo, which is our city's birthplace. So thank you.
Terrific, thank you. I want to echo your comments about Marianna. Thank you so much for your really tireless efforts over the years to make this happen. And you as well, Paul. Great things like this don't happen on their own. It usually takes one or two or a few people getting in the driver's seat and just making it happen and pulling all the resources together. I think it's going to be an incredible facility. It already is. I got the tour as well, and I'm already impressed. So much history, the little speakeasy that was in there too, that's kind of fun, during Prohibition. It's got some interesting things going on there. I love that. Mr. Chris, did you want to say something else?
Yeah, I just had one question. When I looked at the building a while back, there's one area that's underground that's very kind of unfinished. Are there any, and it looks like it would be quite expensive to finish it, are there any plans to do that, or no?
We would love in the near future to have that be, kind of a vibrant extension of the museum. Maybe, culinarily, curatorially, an extension of the mission that is explained, conveyed upstairs. But right now we're focusing on, the bite that we took, and making the city very proud and doing it well, and then hopefully in the near future, we'll, be having a different conversation here. But
so that's at least being considered.
Absolutely.
But it obviously would be rather expensive because it's not in the kind of condition that the rest of the building is.
Correct. And that's what the rest of the building looked like at one time. So it can be done. It'd probably be a few $100,000 to get it where the upstairs is. But
I won't speak out of turn, but I met with someone the other day, and this is very preliminary, but he's talking about $1 million investment to do something down there. But that would probably be later next year So.
No, that would be great.
Yeah.
If I may add just one more thing, kind of going back to transparency, we neglected to mention that we produce audited financials. We have an independent accounting firm. We passed our first financial audit, flying colors, and then we're going to be doing our next one in November. So.
Terrific, thank you. And I also appreciate your remarks about the city really reinvesting in its core. This is the core of the core where the city was founded, and I really appreciate those sentiments, and I agree with you completely. So thank you. I'm going to recommend that we approve the CAO report, but I'm also going to recommend that the Foundation, El Pueblo, and the CAO report to this committee biannually. So when you open in March, right?
Yes.
Then perhaps we could trigger that 6 months henceforth, and go forward from there. So without objection, that is the order. And it carries. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you all
Very much.
very much.
Thank you very much. And I believe that is it. No more items on the agenda.
There are
Thank you
no
so
more
much.
items.
Thank you so much. So this meeting is adjourned. Thank you.
Wow. That was nice. Clean. I like it.